What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more hip-hop, and we're returning to Nujabes and his Modal Soul album. Thank you again to Chris for sending this double LP, which is a 2024 repress, though the album is originally from 2005, and again, RIP to Nujabes himself. And yes, the next track is Music Is Mine, which sounds like an enthusiastic and what's the right word? Like an homage to the idea that music and its creative process can be part of your attitude, your ethos, your approach. Now, of course, it could be saying that you have music on lockdown. You possess music in the sense that you know exactly what you're doing and you do it in the way that you choose. You have control over the music. So it sounds partly confident, but also partly, again, excited or celebratory in terms of your mastery. So yes, let's see what I can pick up on a first listen. This is Nujabes. The track is Music Is Mine, and I believe it's the first track on the second side of the first record. Let's see if I have that right. Yes. So here we go, from Modal Soul, originally 2005, Nujabes, and the track is Music Is Mine. So I will say that one felt a little less like the lo-fi hip-hop vibes and a bit more like jazz band jamming live and just sort of improvising their way through a tune. I very did much enjoy the Sonics. I will say it had this interesting contrast to it. I won't say tension because it felt very smooth and light and enjoyable. So in that way, I suppose it still had a bit of those lo-fi hip-hop vibes. But the drums were very energetic and kinetic. There was a lot going on, rolls and smashes and, sort of a big sound from the percussion. But the melody, both the meandering piano and just the overall atmosphere, was much lighter and smoother. So it had a bit of that like busy while also being relaxed and smooth, which like those things don't normally go together, but it felt like there was both at the same time. And as I said, it had a bit of a live jam feel. Presumably that's something that was, all worked and written out in advance, but you would believe that it's like an improvisational jazz group just playing in a park somewhere. It actually reminded me of the kind of tune you'd hear in like a more artistic style, like old school skate video where, maybe some segments would have a punk rock tune or even a metal tune or so on, but there'd be one section, maybe because the skater's personality was a bit more laid back and mellow, but there'd often be one segment where the tune would be very different and be kind of like light and smooth, and a lot of the clips are in bright sunshine in some park or whatever. It felt like that kind of setting. So I could see like somewhere in New York, maybe, on the edge of Central Park or something, and someone just, doing some street and like ground tricks and, maybe small staircases and so on. It had a bit of a like old school skate video vibe to it. So as someone who used to watch a lot of old school skate videos, I find it very compelling in that regard. So I did hear some lyrics there, and I think we heard the title as well as maybe the complimentary phrase "music is yours," which that doesn't necessarily change what I was thinking about music is mine, but if music is mine, music is yours, I feel like the point becomes broader, and it could be more about how music is an art form for enjoyment, for creativity, for catharsis, for a background to your life, a soundtrack to your life. And thus, it's less maybe about someone's own mastery or the degree to which they control the musical output, and more that music is each of our plaything to take, to do with what we want, to be creative with, or just to enjoy, to incorporate or manipulate in whatever way suits you. So again, if I was hearing that correctly, I think we heard both music is mine and music is yours, which would, as I said, I think extend and modify or broaden the theme that I would take away from that phrase or from those phrases. But most of the track didn't have lyrics. It seems like the lyrics were largely condensed to a small section of the tune, mostly the first half of the tune, after which it just went into that full improvisational style jazz band mode. So yeah, I enjoyed it. A very fun tune, one that again I'd put on when I was doing something, whether it's skateboarding, which as someone in his mid-40s, not something I do really anymore. But yes, again, if I was like taking out records to do a techno mix or something, I might have that on in the background just to sort of keep my mood light and keep my head bobbing and my feet moving while I'm deciding what I'm going to use in a set. So good background music, and again, lo-fi hip-hop, which I'm no expert in, but I have listened to a fair amount over the years, and it feels like that's the essence. You see a lot of those lo-fi hip-hop YouTube channels, and they're like music for studying or music for relaxing and so on. So it's music that you can let become this sonic environment, more than listening to and singing along with and sort of feeling every moment, like in terms of memorizing a song and so on. It's more like a sonic texture that is in the background that you can just relax against and feel as you're doing something else. So in that regard, again, it's despite sounding a bit less lo-fi hip-hop than a few of the other tracks so far, it still did have characteristics that I typically associate with that genre. So once again, big shout out to Chris for sharing the vinyl, as well as to a handful of folks who have been commenting, and indeed, I think there's at least 3 or 4 of you who found my channel through the Nujabes reactions. I don't have a whole lot of hip hop reactions. I got a lot of Beastie Boys because there's some people who started following my channel and were really enthusiastic and directing me and giving me a lot of insight about Beastie Boys. I've done some Wu-Tang reactions. I want to say some Charlie Tuna, some Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and Deltron reactions. So there is a little bit of variety in my hip hop playlist, but it's something I will continue to do, and over time we'll go through some different artists. There's some other material that I've been thinking about what the next step would be, and I don't think my Beastie Boys journey is yet done. There's still, I haven't gone through, what is it, To the Five Boroughs? I'm forgetting what the album title is, but yes, there's more hip hop coming, as well as, or including, the rest of this double LP. So once again, RIP to Nujabes. Shout out to my friend Chris. And Luca, I apologize, I know you're ridiculously comfortable, but I do have to get up. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Peace.